If there's one word I would use to describe Cat Quest 2, it would be breezy. It's a no-muss, no-fuss hack-and-slash RPG with a goofy and straightforward plot that pushes along at a speedy clip and has some absolutely gorgeous art. I mean, just soak this in for a second. It's also a nifty little co-op game, making it the video game equivalent of splitting a bag of popcorn with someone. Sure, it's empty calories, but it still tastes great. But unlike that jumbo tub of popcorn you instantly regretted splurging on at the movies, Cat Quest 2 doesn't wear out its welcome halfway through. And before I stretch this metaphor too thin, we're gonna dive in and see how it all comes together. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm gonna tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're bringing cats and dogs back together in Cat Quest 2. Before we get too deep into the review, I did receive a free advance review copy for this game, so heads up. Cat Quest 2's greatest strength is easily its aesthetic. I already gushed a little bit about how gorgeous the map is, but it goes beyond graphics. Everything in this game is designed to be warm and playful in a way that honestly not a ton of games are. Like, everyone in this game is a total goofball, the art style is extremely cheerful, and even the darkest quest lines have their gravitas blunted a little bit by the overall whimsical and silly delivery. And then there's the puns. So many puns. It's literally in the game's lore that puns were first discovered by opening the artifact named Pandora's Box, and it just goes from there. Like, just this one character, Hado Doggo, has like 3 different puns going on in his name alone. Some of my favorites were an ocean named the Pacific Divide and a spell dubbed Berserk, but this is like 75% of Cat Quest 2's charm, and all the other goofy hijinks and colorful characters just feed into it. You're either gonna love it or hate it, and you probably already know which way you're going to go. And this wacky, warm, pun-overloaded aesthetic is what to get the game for. And the reason for that is because everything else in the game, meaning both the plot and the gameplay, are pretty straightforward. That's not a criticism of the game, mind you. Both are executed quite solidly. It's just you're not gonna find too many twists here. Let's touch on plot first, since this'll be quick. The gist of it is that the nations of dogs and cats are at each other's throats in a permawar, and only you, the reincarnations of the first kings of both nations, can put an end to the violence. And the majority of your time is spent on a whimsical quest to reforge the King's Blade, a legendary weapon that will allow you to go toe-to-toe with the nation's current tyrants and overthrow them. The plot is pretty bare bones, but it does start pulling some late-game twists. For the most part, however, Cat Quest's story prefers to stay out of the way and mostly just act as a catalyst for you to go out there and do stuff. And most of the stuff you'll be doing is whacking monsters in the face and dungeon diving. Cat Quest 2 has got a whopping 73 dungeons dotted around its open world map that you can just jump into anytime you want, be it while actively exploring or on the way to your next quest marker. And while that might sound intimidating at first glance, they're mostly little 5-minute mini-ventures with a fighter 3 and some loot to snag. Combat itself is pretty straightforward. You've got your basic attack, a dodge roll, and then you get up to 4 abilities you can select for each of the game's 2 protagonists. And enemies all try to hit you in return with big telegraphed attacks. Most of them are just small circle AoEs you need to watch out for, but later enemies start learning the same spells you do, which adds some needed complication to the proceedings, especially once they start mix and matching. The system feels simple at first, but it's surprising how quickly a fight can go from basic to overwhelming as you add more spell-wielding enemies. And if you hadn't guessed it from the dual protagonists, this was a game that was very clearly designed to be played co-op. Different enemies have different weaknesses, and you can't just equip one character with everything, so the game is constantly trying to build challenges that give one character or the other a moment to shine, or make fights where each player tackles half the room. But it holds up remarkably well as a single-player game anyway. If you're playing alone, you can swap between the 2 kings at will, and for the most part, the AI is pretty good at keeping whichever one you're not controlling out of trouble. I ended up using my axe-wielding cat for the bulk of the game, and made my other character a heal bot that I swapped to if something was weak to magic damage. You can build the kings however you want, but ultimately you're going to want 1 fighter and 1 mage to cover all your bases. Inside of those 2 archetypes, however, there's a bunch of stuff to explore. You can stack items that reduce your overall health pool, but also massively reduce the amount of damage you're taking. Or you could be like me and stack buffs that improve your dodge roll and just never get hit in the first place. This is a strategy that works every time. Guaranteed. Overall, Cat Quest's combat loop is stiff enough that you can't just face roll your way through it, but like the rest of the game, it's very much designed to be a breezy, chill time, and not a hardcore test of your skills. And by and large, I think it works. The only real criticism I have is in the leveling system. It can be kind of tight sometimes. Enemies 3 levels under you are pushovers, and anything 3 levels above you will kill you in 2 or 3 hits. Being under-leveled is rarely an issue, since it's not hard to pop off for 5 minutes to another dungeon for a quick level, but if you accidentally do dungeons out of order, you could easily find yourself exploring a corner of the map filled with content 5 or more levels under you that you kinda just walk through. I feel like it's less a flaw the game could have fixed and more just an inherent trade-off to how Cat Quest's overworld works, but it can still be kind of disappointing to find a new dungeon, only to see it's completely obsolete. But with all that said, it's time to ask, what do you get out of 5 hours with Cat Quest 2? And while I haven't finished the game, I'm 2/3 of the way to its level cap, and it feels like I'm just starting the final act, so quite a fair bit. And while I'm having a lot of fun, I also feel like I could drop or pick up this game at basically any point and not really care. I'm just kind of coasting along, soaking in the positive vibes, and having a good time with it, and if that sounds like your jam, I don't think you can go wrong, whether you play for 2 hours or 20, especially if you've got a buddy in tow. Cat Quest 2 isn't the deepest thing you'll ever play, but it's just such a breezy good time that it's hard not to have fun with it. It's a textbook example of how a competent core can be elevated into something highly entertaining by its aesthetic. And as I occasionally highlight for those in the audience with kids, it's not just a good fit for all ages, it's even one they can play and enjoy right alongside each other. If the aesthetic does anything for you, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're looking for another lighthearted adventure, go watch my review of Cadence of Hyrule. And if you want a hack and slasher with a very different vibe that isn't afraid to get a little weird, check out Creature in the Well. But I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.